Hi there. So this is Aussie Rad Femmes. Welcome to the live stream. Don't know if anybody's there or not. I'll just quickly turn this off. Okay, so I see we've got two viewers. So I've put the link into the top chat and into the description box. So there's two different places to find it to be able to join in. And while I'm waiting for people to join in, I'll just give some news that isn't in our description. And that's that we got the tampon tax removed in Australia, which is great because this was introduced sometime in the 1980s. So for some of us, our entire lives of menstruating, we have been paying this ridiculous tax. And the government has, complained that it's now going to lose millions of dollars every single year in taxation. And I would say no, they've been stealing millions of dollars per year from this tax, so that it's actually, a female tax. It's a tax for being female. So I'm glad that that's finally over for us here in Australia. However, in New Zealand, it's still going, and it's understood as a luxury tax over there. So it's triple tax. So where Australia, we were paying 10%, that was our GST. In New Zealand, their GST is 12.5%, but because it's considered a luxury, it's actually 37.5% is what's added to all menstrual products over there. So that fight's still on. And it's been going since the 80s there as well. Hi, Saber. How are you? You're at work, so you're just going to listen? Fair enough. Yeah. I don't know what time it is for you over there, but here we're looking at between 5:30 and 10:30 at night for across Australia and New Zealand at the moment. Okay, so we had a few things going on in Australia this week. I'm just going to go into the notes underneath. So one of the ones I've put in here is last month in Fiji, 6 lawyers debated prostitution law reform of either legalization or prohibition. None of them even recognised the Nordic model, and there were no survivors speaking on this. It was completely lawyers. So in Fiji, there is a huge demographic of people going over there for tourism, and that's one of their main economies. So one of the arguments used in this prostitution debate was that if prostitution is legalized, then they're going to have even greater tourism and a lot more money coming through. Now, yes, that's true, but it's at the expense of Indigenous women. This is not something that can be, trod over lightly or gently. Bottom line, what they would be doing is disadvantaging their own people further, because that it's not going to be Fijian men set up in pimping. It's going to be mostly Australian and New Zealanders and white men. This is, simply the way prostitution operates. White men set up shop and they cream millions of dollars off it and they take it overseas. So the money wouldn't even stay in Fiji anyway. Or at least that's my opinion and my understanding of it. So even if you didn't have a problem with any of the human rights issues, on a purely capitalist level, the argument doesn't stand up. And obviously for radical feminists, we do look at the human interest side of it. We look at human rights and we say, there's racism, colonialism within this. And that's got to be centered in our understanding of a small island in the South Pacific and its prostitution laws. Now, in New Zealand, and I don't know the stats for Australia, but I would say that they're very similar in Australia. In New Zealand, 7.5% of the population are Maori women. 15% are Maori, but 7.5% Maori women. Yet 30% of the industry is Maori women. So they're 4 times more likely to enter the sex trade than Pakeha, which is non-Maori, non-Pacific Islanders. Now, if we look at Fiji, we can expect those stats to be a lot worse because there isn't the greater variety of races and people from all around the world living there permanently. You've got holiday home white people, and then you've got, a mixture of Pakeha and Fijian. But the Fijian and Indian populations are the main people living in Fiji. So we are looking at a major race issue if legalization goes through there. And so that's something that I really hope that Australians and New Zealanders can get onto and start actually writing letters. Look up the politicians, write letters and say, we are concerned because you're a country in the South Pacific and so are we. We have got the right to interfere in the politics of other countries. And this is something I think that we need to think about as well. It's not just about our country. If legalization spreads to this side of the world, it spreads fast. So what happens in small islands does affect us. Okay, so moving on to the next one. I'm still waiting for people to join me. Right, Channel 7 did a segment on what women would say to their 20-year-old selves. Now, I find this one really interesting because it was done like a light fluff piece, They may as well have said, if you were a totem animal, what would you be? They didn't ask the hard questions of, if knowing what you know about the world today, what would you warn your 20-year-old self about? What advice would you give? It was an open-ended question with no context. So, of course, what they get is superficial fluff. It'll be whatever the person is thinking about at the time. And people are, out on the street, busy doing what they have to get done. And they've just been, interviewed by somebody on the street randomly. They're not going to be thinking deeply. And so I don't really feel like Channel 7 actually represented women at all on this. They would have been far better off having a booth and saying, look, if you've got time, come up to us. Here's the question, think on it. Here's the context. Excuse me, I'm still coming off a cold at the moment, so I'm finding it a little bit difficult to talk. That is another thing. If we don't have people coming on today and joining me, I'm going to end this early just because my voice is not going to be able to continue on my own the whole time. Let's see if we've got anybody in our top chat. Nope. Okay. All right, so right, women's superannuation was discussed this week in the mainstream, and it was understood as so-called complicated. And I'm just going to open up that news article because personally, I don't think it's complicated at all. The reason that women have a lot less super is because, parenthood and looking after one's own parents is something that's always dumped on women, and there's no superann pay. It would make sense to have a government superannuation pay that is done whenever women are pregnant, having children, or looking after elderly parents, because that is work. Now, I'm not one to believe in a, income for parenthood in and of itself. I am one to believe in universal basic income across the board for all disadvantaged people to have a living wage. I think that's actually more getting to the root of an issue, which is the issue of poverty, rather than separating out mothers from all other women, because motherhood affects all women to some extent, We all know women who are mothers. We all have mothers, and we all have to negotiate whether or not we're going to enter that. So it does affect us. Okay, so going into this, it's saying that the retirement savings of single women are well below those of single men, and homelessness among older women is climbing. And it doesn't really give much more information about this. All it does is say this is happening. It doesn't give the statistics. Yeah, so for what it's gone on with here is women's lives aren't linear. This is the heading. And it says unpaid work, part-time and interrupted work, and the gender pay gap are only some of the reasons women are poor and in retirement. But a lot of the time, the reasons are far more complex. And they then asked women over 40 to draw their careers on pieces of paper. And what they found was women weren't drawing straight lines or timelines as expected. They were drawing circles, zigzags, spirals, ups and downs, rounds and rounds, bit of this, bit of that. And they described this as a game of snakes and ladders. And they contrasted it with the way in which men understand their careers as a straightforward timeline. And they found that men drew, this straight line up. They've also pointed to sexist workplaces and ageism having quite a lot to do with it. But again, they haven't given statistics. They haven't looked at where the sexism comes from, what bolsters that sexism, where the ageism comes from, and what bolsters that. And as radical feminists, we do talk about this stuff. We know already that it's a mainstream media of practically worshipping the youth culture. And if you're not young, you're invisible. We get that. But in the mainstream, we actually start needing our journalists to start recognizing it and asking the question, what is making this, what's making this the result? How are we creating this environment and changing the creation of this environment? So they also looked at the second shift, and this is women going home to unpaid work and the mental load of that job and how in which it affects women on the in their actual paid work, that it adds a burden to everything that is done, yeah? So I'm just reading through it as I'm talking. It has a look at expensive childcare and work structures that are inflexible as being part of the reason. But the thing is, if women without children are also having a huge gap, then we've got to come look at something else here that's going on. And that is, why are women without children also experiencing a huge gap? Because they're not going to be experiencing expensive childcare and a second shift when they get home. Okay? So there's more going on than just family. There is a sexism that's ingrained in society that because you're female, you're not going to earn as much, and thus your superannuation will be less. And they have looked at, family care for older or disabled family members as being often dumped on women. But again, there's no statistics going on in here, nor is there any questioning of why we have these pervasive understandings that elder care and childcare are women's responsibilities. We needed that in there. Now, the next heading in here is the real roots of poverty are deeper. And I'll read it out. Women certainly aren't helpless victims. Many I spoke to knew they had traded off financial security in their old age for other aspirations or needs. But choice and financial literacy won't be nearly enough to get women who lack financial security back on track. If we want women to be secure in retirement, we will have to examine the reasons why their lives zigzag and spiral and resemble games of snakes and ladders. We will need to examine the environment in which their choices take place. Now, this is assuming choices. You've got an elderly family member, for example, who requires help, and if you don't do it, nobody will. They're on their own, and they could end up being in serious danger. For any reasonable human being, there's no choice in this. You do what you have to do. And even if you've got brothers or sisters, if they're not going to step up, you have to. Now, I don't really see that as a choice myself. I see it as I'm a decent human being. If I'm required to do this, I will just do it. And yes, those sacrifices will be worn by me because society has not got safety nets or understandings of what this situation is and how in which it affects women. The problem here is not women's choices. The problem here is governmental choices and men's choices. To me, this seems really obvious, and hopefully it does to pretty much most radical feminists. The choice to consider it not my problem, which is what the choice most men take, is the problem. And it's the choice that government is taking as well. Not our problem, it's a personal issue. It's a family issue. You know, it's the same old excuses used for domestic violence. Oh, it's just a domestic. So the next thing I've got on here is the Sydney Herald finally did an article on heavy bleeding and the option of uterine artery embolism as an alternative to hysterectomy. So I don't know if you know this, but oh, is somebody else on here? Ah, hey, Painted Black, how are you?
Hi, how you going?
Good, yeah. So what's been going on? I haven't talked to you in about a month.
It's been a while. Not a lot actually. I've been pretty low key, but just keeping my eye out and listening to lots of things. Not saying an awful lot.
Yeah, yeah, because there was a
But
bit of
sorry,
disruption.
I've got a meeting tomorrow night with some other radical feminists,
Oh, good.
and yeah, we're discussing topics, and I'm not sure what's on the table tomorrow night, but looking forward to seeing those women
Yeah.
and seeing what's in the wind and hopefully doing some proactive stuff.
So this is in Sydney, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, good, because New South Wales had that horrible bill go through, and I can't
yeah.
help thinking that there needs to be some strategies applied to everybody living in New South Wales on how to actually fight issues without breaking this new law.
Right, right. And the problematic thing about that is the law is tying our hands and our voices.
And it's so vague that it can be interpreted in so many different ways that
Exactly.
you hit upon, you know, say an activist who found, something about radical feminism offensive, they could take it to through legal avenues. And it depends on how that law then gets interpreted as to whether they win or whether we win.
That's right. And I think that was something I had in mind. I haven't written all my notes yet because I like to go prepared because I don't always remember things, in the heat of the moment. I get excited and animated, and then I forget what I want to say.
Yeah.
So I want to write things down just to make sure that we can have a chat about things and try and nut out a scenario where we could possibly help others in this um, in this situations. Like Beth has been having a terrible time. She hasn't been online a terrible lot. I think she's on Twitter.
Yeah, I haven't seen her around in about, God, maybe 3 weeks now, which is really unusual because she's usually quite active online.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't seen her either, and I don't know. And I'm currently banned from Facebook because someone went down a friend's page and saw that I'd written tranny, so I got reported and I'm banned.
Ah, shit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I tend to avoid that word.
I've been trying to, but I think I was just so incensed about what had been happening in the June Pride dyke marches and things like that. I think I just wrote it because I was just really upset
Yeah.
and distraught about what's happening with the lesos over there. and how they're being basically hunted down like dogs.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
that's a good
awful.
point.
It's just awful. I mean, women being attacked, women being surrounded, women being yelled at. It was just like it was. I'm really an empathetic person, and I just hurt for those women. You know,
Yeah.
I
I've
hurt so much.
seen women who have, been attacked online simply because they wanted to listen to what women
Right,
say. I mean, that's an
and it's absolute. They won't listen, and they don't want to debate. They just want to dictate and tell us we're hateful and we're wrong and we're bitches and all of the rest of it. They're just insidious.
Yeah, I think it's a sign of desperation, though. It could be because we're at a turning point where people are waking up to this crap, or at least this is my hope. And so
Well,
the
there is
insidiousness
people
is
waking up.
upping.
Yeah. Well, there is people waking up, and there are people starting to look what happened to Posey Parker.
Yeah.
Look what it's a billboard. It may have been looked as antagonistic, but it was just basically her. I mean, she did explain, well, we're being attacked. So I just want it to be known that, guess what? The dictionary definition still stands. And this is a straight woman. She's married with 4 kids, you know?
Mm.
She's not even in the LGBTQRISTUVWXYZ. Not
And
even
she
part of
says she's
that.
not a radical feminist as well.
She's not. She even claimed on that TV show, The Breakfast Show, that she wasn't even a feminist. She said it.
Yeah, exactly. So she doesn't fit into their categories of, you know, lesbian bigot in their terms,
Yeah,
nor does she fit into the category of TERF in their terms. Yet
right.
she's being attacked in the same way. And I think it's because they recognize that she's probably, in some ways, more dangerous because she sort of represents the majority of women who would be heterosexual with children.
Right. Exactly. And she's been um she's been like lynched, isn't she? Like they've reported her to the police.
Yeah. I saw a few different interviews, but one of them was really telling because they had three people, two presenters, and that gay man who complained about the first billboard she put up. And so, he was saying he represented LGBT, which he didn't. He wasn't representing
He
anybody
represented
and
himself. The doctor, is
misogyny.
that the doctor? The doctor, whatever his name.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can't remember his name either. I just watched it.
Harrop.
Two presenters.
Dr. Someone Harrop.
Yeah. The two presenters were cutting her off every 5 seconds,
Yeah.
and she could barely get a word in edgeways.
I think I saw the same program. It was an English had that, is it Piers somebody or other?
I
What's
don't
his
remember
name?
their morning show anyway.
Yeah, there's a guy on it called Piers Morgan or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the woman, she was very the woman interviewer too, she was very pro transgender, and she was basically saying, well, aren't you being mean? Where's your compassion? She said. Do you remember that?
Oh, that was that radio interview.
No, it was the Piers
Oh,
Morgan and that lady interviewed on another morning show.
oh, okay. So it was on that as well. Because I saw
Yes.
one where they had some woman saying that she found the billboard offensive as a woman.
Yeah,
And was saying, where's your compassion and empathy?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that I
Another one
kept
too.
thinking over and over was, where's the compassion and empathy for women?
Yeah, it's like, well, well, what do you mean, the compassion and empathy? What about the compassion and empathy for women?
Yes.
You know, why do we have to be compassionate and empathetic to trans people who are trying to tell us to shut up?
Yeah, and why does it always center, male feelings? Like, it doesn't really matter which group of males it is. Women are always being expected to have no emotional or mental response, to
Right.
center other people and only consider the other people's needs while having none of our own.
Yes. It's just diabolic, isn't it? It's like, fuck me dead. Why don't you just go and consult some other woman who's being attacked? Like, they didn't bring up what's her name? Mary McLaughlin. Is it Maria McLaughlin? They didn't get
Oh,
her.
yeah.
They didn't get her on TV and say, "Oh, can you explain to us how you happened to get assaulted?" You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Can you explain why you were um, pushing your phone, that you were videoing these protesters? Can you explain why you did that? Like, they didn't do anything like that to her, and they didn't send her off to the police because she claims that these men were harassing her. You know what I mean? In fact, the police did a terrible job on the whole incident. They didn't really look for the other two people. They were given names and descriptions, their online names.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I knew there
Yes,
were three of them and only one of them was caught.
yes, the same as the guy that was actually convicted
Right.
and charged. He was charged and he was convicted in court. And they gave his online name and description as well.
Right.
But the police didn't bother looking for the other two because they had one and that was enough resources they were going to spend on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think in some ways it's because they're afraid of upsetting the, trans lobby. Um, what do they call it? The trans cabal. That's what Julie Bindel calls it, which is, name for it. Because it's not trans people. It's a
Mm.
minority, you know?
Yes, I'm really concerned. This is all going to blow up here, like really badly. Like, we're coming into October, but we are in October. What should I say? We are also being told, like, we can't. Hate speech covers gender,
Yeah.
and if we dare to say, that transgenderism is not real and this is a farce, well, that's going to be considered hate speech.
Well, I think there is something that can be drawn on, and that's the Basic Human Rights Convention, as outlined by the UN. One of the things in it is that every group of people and every individual must have the right to fight on their own behalf politically for their own rights. So we have signed it, we haven't ratified it. But
Mm.
the signing of it means that, yes, this is an issue that we agree with. And ratifying means a commitment to following through. So, the fact that we've signed it is still enough to be able to draw on that before speaking. So, if women in New South Wales said, I draw on the Human Rights Convention for the right to fight on my own behalf politically for human rights, and then go into what it is that they have to say about gender ID, then there's a basis for how it isn't hate speech and it is actually about their own rights.
So every time we want to post a comment online, we have to write that up.
Well, it would be a safe way of doing it. I don't think you have to. I just
Well, no,
think
you don't have to,
you
but
get
yeah,
it
of course.
safe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a given, of course. That's what I'm saying. Well, if we
Yeah.
want to actually um, combat, because basically it's a war zone. We want to combat this. this falsifying of what the word woman is what the transgender people are doing. They're falsifying a meaning of a word by
Yeah,
virtue of being a male and calling themselves women. So
yeah,
if we want to combat that, well, then we've got to write those things so that when inevitably the transgenders in Australia, New South Wales, all the states and territories go after us online, we'll have to write that.
yeah. And the other one would be CEDAW, you know, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. That's 1981 by memory that came into effect. And again, we signed, but we didn't ratify. But, you know, that's the International Bill of Rights for Women. And to silence women is against the, you know, against CEDAW. So that's another thing that we can use to exercise our right of speech.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thanks for saying that. Can you please say that again?
CEDAW, it's the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Now, I've just pulled it up here. It's an international treaty adopted in 1979 by the United Nations General Assembly. It's described as an international Bill of Rights for Women, and it was instituted on the 3rd of September, 1981.
Right.
Yeah, and 189 states have ratified. Australia is not one of them, nor is New Zealand for that matter, nor the United States. So, you know, 189, not us.
Yeah.
Sign.
Well, we don't have a Bill of Rights.
No, we don't. We should.
We should. That should be implemented.
Yeah. So that would be the two things that I'd look at is the basic human rights and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW for short.
Mm. Wow.
We've got, you know, documents to draw on that are internationally recognised, you know, as a way to fight this. I think we could even fight the amendment and try and get it reversed based on CEDAW.
Right.
It'd take a hell of a lot of organising, and it would probably require, you know, radical feminists across the whole of Australia to do it. I don't think we could leave it in the hands of, you know, a handful of people and expect it to be done.
No. Well, they're doing some sort of you're aware of that international women's right that they're trying to write up at the moment?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's isn't it being led by Spider?
Yeah, well, she's part of the crew that are writing it all out. They're getting all sorts of women that are contributing to. They're looking over old stuff and then, you know, presenting it to the group of women that are set about writing, reforming it, and putting out their own.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll know how to get through on this one because, you know, unless you have an inroad to the UN, well, specifically UN Women, then
Yeah,
it's probably not even going to be read.
right. But
Yeah.
maybe try and put it to I think I don't know if it's women in the UK that are writing this up or women in the US, but I think what they want to do is table it somewhere in and put it into some legislator.
Yeah, they would have to have connections, you know. It
Right.
doesn't really matter which country did it or wrote it up or whatever. There'd have to be like a friendship connection somewhere or a professional connection somewhere just to get it in and read.
Yeah, true. So I don't know how they're going to go about that if that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's bound to be somebody who does have those professional connections, but,
I think
you
I
know,
read something today someone does.
Mm.
I could
Yeah,
be,
really.
but I thought I did. Maybe I dreamt it. I don't know.
Right.
How was your
Yeah.
time? How was your time in where were you? Portugal?
Yeah, that's right. It was really, really difficult. On the first flight, because I had to get 3 flights over there, and we're looking at 2 days to get there. And on the very first flight, I picked up the flu, and I wasn't the only one. Arrived in Abu Dhabi, and there was actually ambulances picking people up and taking them to the hospital. And this was not
Yeah.
just one flight; it was multiple flights where this was happening. And I think some of the American airlines are actually being sued by Americans because it's really obvious that people coming from all different, parts of the world on all different flights picking up the flu. There's something wrong with the planes, not, you had the bug before you got
Yeah.
on. Is what they were trying to say.
Right. Jesus.
Yeah. So I arrived there after getting the flu. Arrived there, I had 50 minutes from the time that I got to the apartment to having cameras in my face and an interview. And so I showered, caked on about 20 layers of makeup, and 2 days no sleep, flu, and had, a photographer up saying, look this way, do that. And I'm like, oh God, I want to die. Um, and then an interview. So it was, the interview went well. It was just very, very difficult circumstances. And then I had a meeting straight afterwards to just let me know what was going on for the time that I was there and to sign paperwork. So there I was reading through all these legal documents and shit, and really not 100% present. Yeah, and then we had a press conference the next day. Rachel Moran arrived about midnight or something. I was in bed by then.
Yeah.
Got up, caught up with her, and then went off to this press conference together. And then we were joined by Huska Mao from Germany. And she's a public speaker and survivor of the German system. So she's got some horrible stories to tell about that because I think, in my opinion, Germany's the worst in the world for this stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, they were the first to implement. The the equivalent of $10. Get everything.
Yeah. Yep. The what do they call it? Flat rate brothels.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah. They have no qualms whatsoever objectifying women.
No, and they've pushed boundaries as well. Like they were the ones who introduced filming women, being pretty much raped while pregnant, and heavily pregnant and almost due, and things like that. And there's now a whole genre of porn dedicated to women being anally penetrated while giving birth. I mean,
Oh my God.
actually get worse than that, you know?
How could women submit themselves doing that? I just can't understand it.
I don't think they do. I think what happens is, they sign a 2-year contract, and then they've got no choice, because if they don't do it, then they're in breach of contract and can be sued.
So
That
they're owned.
was there.
They're slaves.
Yeah, it's sexual slavery in a nutshell, and it's government supported.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, I just wonder how the fuck women even survive. Women don't always survive giving birth full stop, let alone having that happening at the same time.
Well, we don't know if they did survive, do we? All of them.
Well,
How
that's
would we know?
Yeah.
How will you know that they didn't die?
Oh, Salty Sock said I'd wear a NEOS mask on a plane these days. Yep, fair enough. And that sounds horrific. Should be some laws about endangering the pregnancy. Yeah, there absolutely should be. And there should actually be laws that you can't, make a woman sign any form of sexual contract at all for any reason, whether it be commercial or not, because that takes away the right to say no, which is automatically rape.
That should be under the UN. Not that
Yeah.
they do it. They're corrupt within their own body.
Yeah, I can't remember what the charter actually says on that one. I don't know if there's even actually anything in it to do with contracts and what that would mean for women.
No, well, see, if they had that as a contract in under one of their charters, they'd have to have multiple. That would open the door for multiple sections of the society of contractual, contractual situations, such as when people traffic human beings.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this is the problem with coming at it from socialist feminist kind of perspective. They're looking at it as, worker rights rather than human rights.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. They are looking at because it's been deemed as work.
Yeah. So, even when you look at workplace safety and health, there's no way that can pass. Any kind of penetration actually couldn't pass workplace safety and health when you think about it.
Yeah. There's breaches everywhere. I've worked in many places where there was breaches of health and safety, and every time I spoke up about anything, I was either moved, sacked, or abused.
Yeah, because employers don't want to think about that kind of thing. It costs them money.
Yep. Last place I worked at, I made sure they were. I told my union, and they brought in the health and safety inspector.
Right.
And consequently, I was pursued, given a gag order that I had to sign, or I would be basically facing bankruptcy. My house could have been taken away from me. My possessions, they would have gone for me.
Shit.
But I got money out of them, and I resigned.
Okay.
So I can't talk about who they are.
No. Gag order.
Yeah. So consequently, my name, I had a black dot against my name.
The problem, I'm just reading what Salty Socks has to say. Problem is that workers' rights are often seen from the employer's perspective rather than the individual workers' concerns or even the class of workers' concerns,
Well, I was the only female in the company working in the on the tools, as they say in the trade.
Right. So, yeah, that would make it difficult because women's concerns can be often very different and more comprehensive than men's.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when part of those concerns can actually be the men themselves.
They were.
Right. Yeah, not surprising.
Mm. So consequently, it was really quite harrowing. It went over a 12-month period, and the onus was on me to prove, of course.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
did to a certain extent, but I didn't have comprehensive proof.
No, well, I think often when we're in workplaces, we don't document every tiny little detail. We don't have our phones at the ready to, record everything that's said and film everything that's done and take photos of all the stuff that needs the gathering of evidence. Basically,
Yes, I
just
wrote
got
down
your
in the
memory.
diary. I didn't have a phone at the time that had a camera.
Yeah. But even then, I mean, if you whipped out your phone and started stuff at work, the behavior is going to change in seconds flat because they know they're doing wrong.
Yeah, I even had a fellow follow me to my house and
Oh,
knock on the front door and abuse me and demanded to come in. So when I reported him, I was told that it had nothing to do with work, that I had to go to the police.
what?
Yeah,
You would think that that's a workplace concern, considering that it was a workmate.
it was.
Yeah.
They refused to address it. So he knew he did wrong. So he left. He didn't come back. He came back for a couple of days, picked up his gear, and then took off. Never came back because he knew he was in trouble.
Yeah.
Police really didn't
Wonder what
care.
the
Didn't
hell.
really want to know.
Sorry, what was that?
The police didn't really care, and they didn't really want to know. They
Oh,
told
okay.
me that I should tell the workplace, and I told them I did, and they told me to see you. And they go, well, what can we do? He didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, because knocking on somebody's door, and
It's not a criminal offence.
it's not illegal.
Yeah. So, this is the type of, all-male job that I was in. There was over 40 of us like we were in a big factory, and over 40 of us there, and several on site. So yeah, it was disgusting. I had up 17-year-old, 18-year-old apprentices, pulling their pants down and spreading their ass,
Oh,
calling my name out. I had blokes shoulder charge me. I had them kicking my work and destroying my work, holding, making me, redo work, which in turn held up the job because I had to redo stuff. And when I tried to explain what had happened, I couldn't prove who did it because, of course, they did it without my seeing. They just said, well, you should put it somewhere else. Like they kept shifting the goalposts, and I kept being moved around the factory because no one ended up wanting to work with me, did they?
right. Because men stick together.
Yeah.
They always
And
look
I
out
was
for pros.
troublemaker. Yeah, I was deemed as the troublemaker. Oh, well, there's something wrong with you. If all these men don't like you, well, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
You're the troublemaker. And it's like, oh, I've had enough of this. I was in
Yeah.
my early 40s. I was over it, late 30s, early 40s, and then I was over it. And they tried to poison me. So they emptied my bottled water and filled it up with paint thinners. We used that to get the
God.
gum. Yeah, we used that to get the gum line off of. We had laminating. We'd laminate counters and bench tops and things like that. And so after you filed back the edge, we'd get the paint thinners because that was the only thing better than methylated spirits or terps. Paint thinners was a acetate, so we could just get rid of the gum line really easy without wrecking the laminate.
Right.
Yeah. So in a hot factory, you're using that stuff, And then you've got your water bottle. Like all these things were marked with tape and written on it what they were, like metho, terps, paint thinners. We drilled a hole in the cap. We just used things like water bottles, Coke bottles, or whatever, just to use as a container. Where it wasn't, no one always used to do that. But, most of us who used it on a regular basis had that behind us on our cupboards, in our benches, in our, they were like a drawer and cupboard bench. So it was really part of trying to label stuff so that you didn't use the wrong thing.
Yeah, at least you probably would have been able to smell it in the water bottle, really obviously.
Well, at the time I was using it all the time, and I picked up my bottle, my water bottle, which was a bought store bottle, and then undo the cap and take a big glug because I'm sweating because it's like, 30 degrees in the factory. There's no fans. And you're sweating like a dog, and you're working really hard. And next thing you know, you take a big slug of what you think is water and it ends up being paint thinners. So
which is really dangerous.
My amenities, there was a woman's toilet and a shower, and I had my locker in there, and I was able to try and spew it up. And that wrecked my esophagus, burnt my throat.
Yeah.
And after that, I went out and told my supervisor. Said someone has put paint thinners in my water bottle because I left it there the day before. And overnight, people, I would assume, people that came in from being on site wanting to use, a bench to do things. Because, it was open. People had keys, like workers had keys.
Right. Salty Socks has just said, oh my God, that's akin to attempted murder. And it is.
It is.
Because,
it is.
Or grievous bodily harm at, minimum.
Yeah. Well, I went to the doctor. I left work and went to the doctor straight away and documented it.
And they didn't do anything about this?
No, I rang up. That was on a Saturday because I was working 4 days on and having 3 days off. I was working 12-hour days.
Right.
And then, so that was on Saturday. So the office wasn't in until Monday. So I had to wait till Monday to call. I left our group, because at the time we had a group that was working the 4 days, and we had another group that was working the other 3 days.
Right.
Or 4 days. It was like it was a continuation. It was implemented because he took on too much work and he had deadlines to meet.
Right.
So I rang them and said I'm not coming in, and they said okay. I said, well, do you want to know why? And they said, yeah, all right. And I said, because I had someone try to poison me. I said I'll be writing a letter and explaining everything up until the time of drinking the paint thinners.
Yeah.
Then I contacted the union and told them about it, and they didn't treat me very well either. They were really and in the beginning they did, but towards the end they basically left me hanging out to dry, saying, well, not giving me the best representation. And then basically when it became to a point where they should have represented me in a court situation, they said, no, we won't do that. You have to find your own legal counsel.
That's ridiculous.
Tell me about it.
I understand why men rally around to protect the dangerous men amongst them, because they're constantly going, not all men, but then they're protecting the ones who are.
Yeah. This had a really bad psychological effect on me for years.
Oh, of course it did. It would have a bad psychological effect on anyone going through that.
Yeah. And not only that, I was it wrecked my relationship at 10-year relationship, and in the end I had to we separated, and I had to sell my house and property, and then it was a huge spiral. My mother was really sick and I had to take care of her, and she was in her 70s, and it was just horrendous. I had to separate, move out. Yeah.
Right. Salty Socks has said it's like future insurance with them. In case they decide to do something horrible, they can feel they have impunity. And I imagine that's in response to me saying men rallying around the bad ones amongst them and protecting.
Yeah. Basically, what happened was after I resigned from that company, I went to try and get contract work, labour contract work within my trade experience, and all those companies knew, because the owner of the company that I was working for was the president of the trade I was working in.
Right.
Yeah. So
after they put paint thinner in your water, they effectively destroyed your career as well.
Yeah. They got every bloke in the company to write a letter to say anything at all that I'd said to them, done to them, anything that was minutely deemed as being horrible, bad, nasty, swear words, anything at all, to write letters. And they all wrote letters all condemning me.
Shit. Yeah. And you think that, a swear word is nothing by comparison to trying to poison someone?
Yeah. Well, apparently he told, I went in there on the back foot, because he just told them to take all their posters down, told them to not swear in front of me, told them to give me, treat me like they would expect to be treated. So basically, it was doomed from the beginning, because they all hated me, because I was one woman and went into work in their working space, and they had to stop putting up nude photos of women. They had to stop swearing. They had to help me. Yeah. So basically, I was resented from the word go.
Yeah. They had
didn't have a
behaviour to behave like decent fucking human beings and didn't like it.
Yeah. So I lasted there just under 4 years. But from the word go, I was bullied every day. I was set upon. I was ignored. No one would talk to me. I was told to get out of the lunchroom. It was just continually. That wasn't just a one-off. That was the end result of them couldn't get rid of me. They tried to get rid of me. They tried to set me up to fail. They tried to blame me for all sorts of things. It was just horrendous. This is what it's like being a dyke, and not a feminine looking dyke. I mean, like a butch looking dyke with a little bit of weight on, very capable, just going in and wanting
in a male-dominated sphere as well, because I imagine, even if you'd been a feminine-looking woman, you still had problems in a male-dominated sphere. They'd probably just be different problems,
Yeah. But you know, it was just like, you know, the first week was like, so have you got a boyfriend?
Right.
Yeah. Married? You single? Got any kids? I ended up rocking up on my 1966 Triumph. I said, nah, that's a dyke.
Right.
I hated the fact that
And
I
how
had
did
a.
they take that? Did you know?
I
Was
hated
there?
it. They hated it. Well, where did you get? Whose is that? Like, it's not mine. I'm just writing it. Whose is that? I said, it's mine. Oh, it is not. Must be your uncle's or your brother's. No, it's
Oh,
mine.
right, of course.
Well, how long have you had it? Do you know how to fix it if it breaks down? You know, all of this questioning of my capabilities, of my ownership of stuff. It was really pretty bad.
Yeah. So
This is what it's like when you're a woman in the world, you know.
as
And
well.
sorry,
Sounds like there was lesbophobia as well as sexism involved
oh, of
in the
course it was.
entire experience.
I've experienced that in every workplace I've ever worked, and for them to know that you know, I don't look like a straight person. You know,
Right.
I look like I'm bed. I look like I've lesbian. It never ever, it's never been like anyone's assumed that I was straight, ever.
Right. Salty Socks has just said they probe for vulnerabilities and then they use whatever they can find against you. It's damn psychopathic. I'm getting
Yeah,
angry thinking about it.
yeah, it
And
is.
yeah, she's right. They do look for vulnerabilities, and it's anything that stands out as different, and anything that stands out as something that could be a sore spot for the person as well. You know, on the individual level.
Well, the mere fact that I was assaulted in the workplace. B, a man followed me home and demanded to walk into my home to talk about things that were going on at work. It also was like, you know, snorting coke and stuff like that. And B, having stuff taken out of the fridge in the lunchroom, you know, all sorts of things.
Right.
Just continually, every day, 6 days a week, I worked for nearly 4 years. So 3 years and 11 months. This was a constant. The only break I ever got was when I went on holidays.
Yeah.
And then it just affected me and my relationship. You know, my partner at the time, she wasn't very supportive either. You know, she had her own stuff because I wasn't there supporting her for her stuff in the longest time because I had my own stuff. Yeah.
Right.
But you know,
Yeah.
I didn't even know I was having a mental breakdown. Apparently, I was told by a psychologist that you've been going through a mental breakdown, and I didn't even know.
4 years.
I did not know. I
Four
just
years of being targeted is going to cause so much stress. I mean, if you think about even just minor targeting online that happens now by people you don't even know, and they don't know where you live, they could be from a different country, and
yeah
people get stressed from that.
yeah
To have years of people in your actual life physically standing in front of you every day,
yeah
targeting on as en masse bullying. You
yeah.
know, there's no way that anybody can stand up and feel all right, you know?
Yeah, no, I was just it was just like, you know, I couldn't see a way out. I had two mortgages I was paying. I was, you know, um, having to, you know, upkeep a home and, you know, be a partner and, you know, look after my mother and stuff like that. It was just incredible. It's like, you know, you just kept going because you knew you had no other option. I couldn't leave because, you know, it was hard enough to get that job in the first place. I mean, for 9 months, I kept. It's a particular trade that I was interested in, so that was what I was targeting. So I could, you know, fulfill. You know, I'd done all the theory, but I didn't get all the practical because no one would hire me.
Yeah. I think the other thing, just going by my own experiences, something that happens when you're in a really bad situation is you have mental exhaustion on top of physical exhaustion that prevents you from being able to see a way through. And so the focus becomes on just getting through each moment, and you're practically living right in the present the whole time, just trying to get through it. And so it might be obvious to an outside observer of how to, you know, change the situation. You're too mentally exhausted to see yourself and actually need help to do it.
Yeah. Well, I was being isolated by my partner as well. You know, that was a totally other different situation, as well as trying to achieve. You know, they still had me under the. It took 2.5 years to get my trade certificate because because I was going through all this difficulty at work, no one would train me. And when I would complain that I wasn't being taught anything, they would just lie and say, "Oh, we've shown us stuff."
Yeah. I've
Just
been in situations like that where I've got shown everything all at once in one day, you know, and I'm expected to retain all of it after seeing it once.
right.
You know, it's like, that's not the way people learn. You need to get, you know, a certain
And
amount each day,
step
and
by
you need
step.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah. See, I was also recovering from a head-on motorcycle accident where I had a brain injury, and my pelvis was smashed. So I had learned to walk twice. I'd had a couple of operations. So I'd built myself up, gone back to TAFE, learnt this trade, and then try to get a job. And then to be thrown in amongst all these men who basically denigrated me every day, ignored me if they weren't, and then treated me like a piece of crap.
Right. I've had a motorbike accident as well. I spent 3 years learning how to walk again.
Right.
So I've got a very, very deep understanding of how bad it can be, and just how many little things, you know, can go wrong in the recovery process, how that can put you back by months, and how hard it is to actually just climb out of that shit. So a lot of people don't understand it because we don't talk about it, you know, in society.
No, we don't. And, you know, I had to endure a lot of that stuff by myself. You know, just to the
Yeah.
recovery. It took a total of about 4 years for me to recover. So, and
Yeah.
then in that recovery, I was doing part-time work because I had to earn money.
Yep.
Yeah, so you know, it was really tough. And then to lose, you know, someone that you thought was your friend as well as your lover,
Yeah.
and for them to be, you know, not mentally stable themselves. In the end, you know, you don't see that while you're going through it, but then after, you know, circumspects afterwards is what you see. It
Yeah.
was,
What I was, it became obvious to me, you know, how little people understood about it when the very first things I'd hear from people is, oh, well, it could have been worse. At least, you know, you didn't die, and, you know, you're so lucky because. And there was all of those kinds of statements constantly. And
yeah,
I
and
wasn't
that's just
allowed
so
to have
bad.
a bad day, you
Yeah,
know? if I had tears or any kind of anger going on at all from the second it happened, right through those 3 years, it was like, oh, you're feeling sorry for yourself. It could have been worse, and there was just no compassion or understanding from people around me. But what
No.
I realized was it's self-protection, because a car accident, a motorbike accident, or walking across the road, this could happen to anyone at any moment, and people don't want to think about that.
No. And unless people have actually endured something horrific and as traumatic as being in a near fatal accident, which sounds like you were as well as I was,
Yeah,
it's really it messes with your head as well as it messes with your body, and your body is holds trauma.
yeah. For me, I found when the physical stuff was going on, I couldn't deal with the psychological or emotional at all. So my entire focus was on what I needed to do in terms of rehabilitation, exercises, all that stuff. I was constantly looking at what was necessary on the physical level. So I
Yeah,
wasn't able to deal with the emotional or the psychological until the physical was in the clear. And that's when it all came crashing in.
yeah, yep,
Yeah. And that's the other thing I think might be quite a common thing, is you can only deal with one set of shit at a time. And you
yeah,
can't allow yourself to break down emotionally, because you just got too many responsibilities towards your body at that point.
exactly. Yeah, you try to hold it together.
Salty Socks has just said people who haven't gone through significant physical or mental trauma often just don't get it. They often have a callous attitude that's just harmful. Yeah, I think even when it's not callous, it can be a self-protective attitude of, like, I had people saying, well, maybe you were meant to go through this, and looking for the, that silver lining around the cloud kind of scenario. And it wasn't actually there. That's the truth. There was no reason for this happening. It was random. It could have happened to anybody. And for somebody else who hasn't been through it to face that reality also means they've got to face, this could happen to me tomorrow. And that's threatening. And Salty Socks has also said, personally, I found the physical recovery more difficult. Oh, that's interesting. How did you find it? Was it physical or emotional or psychological was more difficult for you? Painted black?
It was both. I could be psychologically, I could be okay and not be okay physically, because basically I was in a wheelchair for a while, and then that happened to me twice after 2 operations, and then you progress to crutches and so forth. But
Yeah.
I had to hold it together because had to navigate public transport, and I had to talk to people that didn't know me. So I try to keep it together in my head and in my personality, because if you're feeling vulnerable in the first instance physically, you don't want to be feeling more vulnerable mentally, because it's the mental capacity uh, is what's holding you together to get through the physical part.
Yeah.
I had to go through, aquatherapy and
Oh,
physical
so did I.
physical therapy. Uh, I had to rely on others. That was another thing. A big thing is when you're incapable of walking, um, and incapable of getting places or appointments that you need to go to, you have to rely on someone. So you've got to watch yourself. because I was in the early stages. I would lash out. I was very angry. I was seethingly angry because
Yeah.
I was a very active person. I was a motorcycle rider, right? So I was on my bike every day. I used to work as a motorcycle courier there for a while as well. And I was just, I was also organising the Dykes on Bikes in Sydney. So
Right.
I just resigned. So I'd had some sort of, people, lots of people knew me, but I didn't know lots of people. You know what I mean? It's like they knew of me, they knew who I was, but they also, people would come up and talk to you, you didn't know who they were.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you had like a reputation basically, but I was known in the scene per se. And then, I had all these people come to me in hospital, and because I was in ICU and, put in a coma for 6 days or so because I was really, pretty banged up. And
Yeah.
I'd arrested in the ambulance, flatlined and whatnot. So, word got out that I was almost dead, basically. You know how the telegraph, bush telegraph goes.
Yeah.
So, it was all this, and then after you get out of hospital, there's nobody around. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you, you're fumbling, and you're just trying to get through each day at a time, and massive pain. Like I've never had so much pain. I had it from my head to my toe. I was just, you know, because my whole pelvis was smashed, the front and the back.
Yeah, see, that's a lot worse than what I went through. It was basically, mostly it was my left leg, and there was some nerve damage in my lower spine. And so there was a numbness that was initially there, and I was told we don't know if the nerves are damaged or severed. If they're
Wow.
severed, you'll walk again. If they're damaged, then you'll get electric shock feelings. And
Right.
the nerves repairing themselves. And then I started getting electric shocks through my body. And so while it hurt and it was like this horrible shock, I mean, it's like being electrocuted.
Mm.
Um, at the same time, it was like, this is a good sign. And so I had to be happy about being electrocuted.
Mm.
No. So then they put a nerve patch on after that, which actually dulled the sensation so that I couldn't really feel the healing. And that was very, very helpful,
Mm.
That I didn't have a smashed up pelvis, thank goodness, because, having a smashed up leg was bad enough.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, my legs were fine, my arms, because I went, I was on the trumpy, and the pelvis hit the petrol tank first, so it smashed because it was basically a 50 or 60K from there to north. So and then I catapulted over the car. So
Right.
I went flying through the air and landed on my helmet went off and landed on my head.
Oh my God, because the
Yeah,
helmet to be the thing that protects you.
right. So that went missing.
Right. Yeah.
So
It was,
I had to have cranial therapy,
right.
get the plates put back in place because that was that was part of my being so angry because my skull plates weren't in place. This is what the therapist told me. She said that's why you're agitated and angry
I would have
because
thought
it's
that you had reason to be angry anyway, just because.
yeah I did because he came across a no right hand turn on a really acute curve. So when two axes meet together, it's front on.
Right. Yeah, see, for me, it was a person from overseas who had borrowed a friend's car, didn't have a driver's license. just pulled out onto Highway 1 in Auckland. So this is a main road. And I was on a motorbike. They hit the motorbike, which flipped, and the bike landed on top of me so hard it bounced off and caused the injury. So, had the bike not landed on me, I probably would have been fairly much okay. And luckily it bounced off because it meant that I didn't get burns on top of it, So, if it had just landed on top of me, it would have actually been worse.
Were you conscious?
Yeah, I remained conscious the entire time, right up until I got to the hospital, and then I passed out before they could administer anything. And then I was out for about 3-4 days, and they said that I'd slipped into a coma and come out.
Right.
So it's similar in that regard, but the helmet stayed on. I had no head injuries or anything like that. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have the helmet come off because, it's your head and your spine. Those are like the main things that your body wants to protect in those situations.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember any of it. I remember coming out from the lights and turning right, and that's the last I remember.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember waking up in a room by myself thinking, oh, fuck, where am I?
Yeah. I woke up in hospital and I was like, where the hell am I? I pressed the buzzer, nobody came, kept pressing it, because they were understaffed at the hospital and there was only one nurse on, for the entire goddamn ward.
Oh, my God.
And, she ended up having to deal with explaining the whole thing to me of what had gone on while there's buzzers going off up and down this goddamn ward. And, she's like, oh, I'll come back in a minute. And I'm getting frustrated with her and she's getting frustrated with me. And this is part of that fucking sexist bullshit as well. It's just women's work to clean up after all of this, It just kind of pisses me off looking back on it because, at the time, obviously, that wasn't my focus. But, nurses just being undervalued so fucking much that they're not even given the support they need to do the damn job.
Yeah, well, sounds like we've both been through some harrowing experience with motorbikes.
Yeah. And I was never really a great motorbike enthusiast. I enjoyed it, but, I never had that same passion you did. For me, it was just a form of transport to get home. That was it. And it was a very small little thing. I think it was like one of the very rare 125s that had come out. And because I'm only 5 foot and, my skills for riding were good enough for the road, but certainly weren't beyond that. There was no great hobbyist going on there.
Oh, I've been riding for 15 years. I started off with dirt bikes, so I was pretty good at doing things. I knew how to get out of sticky situations. I knew how to ride on dirt and all that. So I was fairly competent. It was just that I had a rogue Islander driving a Sigma station wagon, trying to cut through early. Instead of going up to the lights and turning right and going back around to where his street was, he tried to, it was a Sunday night, so he just tried to cut through to his place against the road rules. So.
Right. Yeah, this wanker, he was like yelling at me while I was on the ground, saying, I didn't see you, you came out of nowhere and all this kind of shit. And it's like, it's Highway fucking 1. This is a straight goddamn road. And I was traveling straight. I mean, there was nowhere to come out of nowhere.
Isn't that the way what men do? Isn't that what they do, though? That anything to get out of, they never, ever want to be accountable for their own actions.
Yeah. But I mean,
I find that with men a lot.
Lying on the road fucking injured, mate, and that's what dickhead was doing.
And they'll lie to get out. Look at Kavanaugh over there. He's lying for his teeth. He's been lying since 2006. You know, he's just a bald-faced liar, and he's going to get in. Like, men will not be accountable. They will lie their ways out of anywhere and anything. I'm not saying women don't do it either, but a lot of women will go, yeah, I fucking did it, you know. Or, you know, they'll say, oh, I'm sorry. So they're basically admitting guilt of what they've done. You know what I mean? It's like men don't say sorry. You don't hear sorry coming from men ever.
No. And
It's
I
like
think
you don't hear them saying they're wrong. They never say they're wrong. It's, you know, it's just the way it is. And if you point that out, well, then you're the worst, you know?
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that it's true, but you're a bitch for saying it.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard that song I Believe Her by Emma's Revolution that's about Kavanaugh?
No.
Okay, I'll put a link in the top chat and the private chat that we've got. Because I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And they've got, it's a folk style song, and they've got women holding up signs, and yeah. So I've just thrown it in. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Put it into, here we go. Now it's in the top chat as well. Actually, I'll just put it on as well, because I can have two windows running at once.
Excellent.
So we can talk while that's going on in the background.
Yeah. Well, you know, the FBI have stopped their investigations already. They haven't taken up the full week.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is this because she hasn't, you know, she's refused to get the documentation from her therapist, hasn't she?
No, I was thinking more along the lines that Trump has basically handcuffed them with what they can do. There's I've been listening to the things on YouTube where CNN and all these other outlets have been reporting. It was about 6 or 7 hours ago now that they notified that the FBI have stopped the investigations. They never interviewed Kavanaugh. They didn't interview Ford. They only interviewed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, and all those people were the ones that said that they weren't there or they don't recall. So Trump sent out a private letter to the FBI saying you can only do this, which was a form. You can only fill out a C something or other form, or P something or other. You know, P numbers. They're number forms, and which basically is not about recording what they look like, what they said, what they only what they could only report what they said, and nothing about. And there's certain questions that they could only ask. So it's a farce.
Right. So it's just pretending to care.
Yeah.
Sox said, a phony investigation.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, because you know, when they said only a week, you knew from the start that it's only a week, so they knew they didn't give them the full scope of doing their job.
Right.
They didn't get the scope. They got handcuffed. You can only do this, that's it. And basically they won't. It's not about coming up with a what do you call it, an end result.
Yeah.
Just a summary of whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
and sit fast.
Sorry, what was that?
It's just a farce. The whole thing's a farce.
Yeah. I saw interviews with random people on the street about Kavanaugh, and
Yeah.
there was quite a few men saying they didn't care whether he was guilty or not, but they wanted him to get in office because he's anti-abortion. And I was
Yeah.
just, how can men actually be so overtly fucking misogynistic? When did we get to the point that they're not even ashamed of these attitudes anymore? You know?
When Trump, when the likes of people like Putin got away with killing people, and Trump got away with having 19 rape allegations against him, that just all went away. And and this is when he got into office. It's all the attitude of males have up up the ante, where they feel that they can get away with whatever they like.
And they are getting away with it. This is the big problem. And we've got women, pointing it out, and then other women just going, oh, yeah, well, what can you do? And
Well,
it's
they've
like,
been getting away
it's a
for it
lot.
for years. It's just now they're more overt. They're even blatantly, um, you know, throwing it in our faces. You just
Yeah.
have to look at transgenderism and how far that's gotten in the last 2 years since he's been in.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's only been, what, about 5 years, really, that the trans movement has just skyrocketed forward, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, the intensity the last 5 years, the intensity has become more prevalent.
Yeah. Because I mean, I remember reading about this from Germaine Greer in the year 2000, and she predicted all of this
Yeah,
in The Whole Woman. And just thinking, oh, it couldn't get that bad, you know. It definitely, brought me to peak trans at that point, back in 2000. But I'd never
yeah,
get as bad as it actually has.
yeah. I was I was wary of them in the 90s.
Right. Yes,
I
any wariness until it was pointed out to me, by reading that book, because I knew trans people. I was around a lot of trans women, not trans men. I've never met any at that point. But,
Yeah.
I started seeing the very same behaviours that Germaine Greer had pointed out. And that's what really, piqued me on the whole thing. I'd never seen it on my own.
Well, I had a friend who was a female and started taking hormones and got a breast cut off in 1991.
Shit.
Mm. And I was around transgender, they weren't transgenders then; they were transvestites.
Yeah.
And in the mid 90s, I had a transgender male, pursuing me,
Oh, he's a
talking
lesbian.
to me. Yes, he called himself a lesbian.
Yeah.
And I'd also been attacked in bars by them because they were trying to dominate me and tell me to go and get some drinks, and I just turned around and said, "Go and get your own fucking drink, love. I'm not your
Good.
slave." And they physically backhanded me or pushed me over, and I got up and had a go and got chucked out of where I was. And when one of them first, she was a Maori in Sydney. He was a big fucker. He was a big fucker. He was a brute.
Yeah.
He'd often put his hands on me and try and feel up my breast, and I'd go to the bar and talk to the girl behind the bar and say, "Look, he's fucking he's assaulting me. He's hitting me and he's assaulting me. Can you do something about it?" And she just said, "Well, what can I do?" You
Yeah.
know, like, And in the street, they would come up to the lesbians and say, "Oh, you think you're so manly, but I've got balls and I'm still more woman than you." You know, things like this.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, it was just, you know, sometimes I felt like I had a neon sign on my head saying, "Pick me."
Yeah, I think lesbians do get targeted and always have. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a vulnerable group that doesn't get support from anywhere.
yes. And, you know, I went to the police and reported this guy, this Maori guy. I didn't know his name. I said I reported to the bar. And he said, "Well, what do you want us to do about it?" They said, "What do you want us to do about it?" I said, "We want to report it." I said, "Well, you don't even know his name."
But it's
So,
in
you
a area, you know? It's like
know,
you don't know the name of a home invader either. You know, you just
yeah,
know that they've committed a crime.
yeah. Well, they just couldn't be bothered. They don't care. They said, "Look, you know, if he does it again, get his name." I'm like, "What? If he
Mm.
does it again, get his name?" Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, what are you meant to do? Pull his wallet out and steal his ID? I mean, it's not like he's going to give you his name.
Exactly. It was just pathetic.
Yeah.
But you get a queen running into the cop shop saying, "We've just been assaulted," and they run down the road looking for someone.
Mm.
It's just, yeah. You, 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 your back's against the wall as number one as a woman, number two as a woman and a dyke. You
Mm.
know, you can't win. The
No.
burden of proof on the woman all the time. This is what Germaine Greer wrote about in her little essay book called On Rape.
Right.
You know, it's about consent and all of that shit. And people have got to read that book to find out exactly what she was talking about instead of, you know, condemning her for what she said. It's not, it's all out of context what women are up in arms about what she said.
Yeah, I haven't actually read the book. I'd like to. I'm just
I
going to
got two of them.
on a copy.
I got one for me and one that I'm going to put into the women's library if they haven't already got it.
Oh, good. Yeah, I wonder if I can get a copy in my local library just by requesting it. I have to work out where they can get it from.
Well, unless they buy a copy or get donated a copy, it won't be in the library.
No, we have a request system though, so you can, request a book.
Well, Glee Books is selling it in Sydney.
Oh, okay. I'll have to have a look in Melbourne. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that shop? Hyenas?
What's it called?
Hyenas? Something in Hyenas?
Oh, I don't know. Hmm.
Yeah, it's a women's bookshop, or it's one of those bookshops that's got a lot of women's stuff in it. I think is it in Fitzroy? Something
Uh,
in Hyenas.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I went to it years and years ago in the 80s. I went to it in Melbourne. I've only been to
Oh,
Melbourne a few
okay.
times. Hounds and Hyenas or Wolves and Hyenas or something like that. And it's a really good bookshop, and it's got all sorts of different genres, and it's popular amongst the feminists and the women. But yeah,
Right.
you should be able to get a copy. It might
Yeah.
even be online. Who knows?
I wonder if Spinifex has got it because they're usually pretty onto it. But then again, it depends if they were the publisher over here or not.
Let me have a look. I've just got to put the light on.
Yeah, I can't find it on the net. Whenever I put hyenas into it with books, it just comes up as
Melbourne
books.
University Press. The university
Okay.
published it. Melbourne University Press.
Okay. So if I just look up, what's it called?
Here we
On.
go. mup.com.au. Lowercasing.
Oh.
Non-fiction. For special offers and discounts.
Really easy to get to from here.
Yeah. Books with spine. I'll read you the blurb on the back of the little booklet. That it's time to rethink rape. It's time to rethink rape. Centuries of different approaches to rape, as inflicted by men on women, have got us nowhere. Rape statistics remain intractable. 1 woman in 5 will experience sexual violence. Very few rapes find their way into court. The crucial issue is consent, though by some to be easy to establish and by others impossible. Sexual assault does not diminish. Relations between the sexes do not improve. Litigation balloons. In On Rape, Wayne Greer argues there has to be a better way. So that's the blurb on the back of the book.
And it's only $15 to get a paperback copy of it. So I've put the into the Livestream top chat for anybody who's interested in it. I'm going to buy a copy. I think at $15, I can afford it. You know.
Yeah. Well, she was born in Melbourne and she was educated here and at Cambridge. So, as a professor, or once was. I don't know if she's still a professor.
Who? Jermaine?
I don't know if she's still a professor at Cambridge.
I don't know. She may be retired by now. Who knows?
Oh, well, she's 80 in January.
Yeah, she certainly earned retirement. I mean, she still speaks out, obviously, but you know, she wouldn't have to full-time work anymore.
There's a lot about Jermaine Greer lots of people don't know.
Yeah. There's a UN consultation on business, gender and human rights in Sydney mid-November. And there's going to be a smaller one in Melbourne on the same thing in late November. And this has got a focus on human rights and the sex trade, as well as, you know, all different types of business. So they're calling it gender and human rights, but I think that what they mean is sex and human rights. And they want a critical perspective on the whole thing. So I think that's going to be really, really interesting. The Melbourne one, sorry, is the 9th of November, but I think Sydney, it's mid-November sometime. I'm not sure when. But I think that's something that we should try and get radical feminists going to. Don't know about the Sydney one, though. But they're doing, I think, 2 two-hour sessions on one day.
Wow. Is that at Sydney University?
I don't know. I wish I knew more about it because I just got an email invite to the Melbourne one, and I missed the general invite, which was to the general public for Sydney, and that would have happened when I was away.
Okay.
I've got to find the information. But yeah, it is a UN consultation.
Okay.
So maybe do a bit of a Google on it or something and find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the organisers is Kate Grosser, Grosser. That's all I know about the Sydney one.
Okay.
So that may be worth telling everybody at that meeting you're going to. Is it tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow night.
Yeah. So it'd be worth finding out about that and getting everybody to go along and actually, you know, having some input.
Can you, I've just found a pen. Can you say that again, please?
Okay, so it's a UN consultation, and Kate Grosser knows.
Yep.
I'm just writing it as I'm, you know, or typing it as I'm, yeah, speaking. So it's mid-November, and it's open to the public. So that's that there. I'll just see if I can put it into
Open
the
to
top
the public.
as well.
Okay, so I'll just type in, we'll just type in UN consultation in Sydney.
Yeah, see if anybody knows about it, because somebody may already, or it will be a matter of a Google search. But yeah, it's mid-November. I know that the one in Melbourne is happening a little earlier.
So the consultation, UN consultation and gender, did you say?
Yeah, it's on gender business, and now let's have a look. I'll just open up this email again. So where is it? It's bloody ads. Human rights and the sex industry, a critical perspective, and it's looking at relevant research and activities and specific feedback to the UN session and how their current framework for business and human rights does or does not include helpful frameworks for understanding sexual violence against women at work and in the sex industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll put a little bit of that into the top chat as well. Because I really hope to see radical feminists turn up to this, because I think we've got the most critical perspective on it, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I got a little bit of that down.
So it's mostly about sexual violence against women at work.
Sexual violence against women at work.
Yeah, that's the main thing. And obviously, we'd need to know a little bit about their current processes and how in which they either support or don't support women, because that's what they're asking. So whoever does turn up to that would need to, you know, have a little bit of a background search on what it is that the UN is, what policies they currently hold. Oh. Yeah, I don't know if any of our viewers are from Sydney or Melbourne, but for Melbourne, it's happening at RMIT on the 4th of November, and that will be put up in Australian Radical Feminists once the advertising for it's ready to go. And I don't remember the exact date for Sydney.
No worries. I'll check that out.
Yeah, cool. Glad that somebody turned up from Sydney. Yeah. Yeah, because I only got that email today, actually. And as I said, I missed the main notification just from being overseas.
Yeah.
But
Well,
in Portugal Parliament, and I learned a lot about the difference in politics when CEDAW has been ratified and when the Charter of Human Rights has been ratified, because Portugal's done both of those things, which we haven't. And when I told them about the language we use around the sex trade here of, what do they call it? Teen sex worker, child sex worker, sex work holidays, all of that kind of stuff. They said we would never be able to do that because we ratified CEDAW. And they said, that would be in violation of having a commitment to the protection of women and girls in health, safety, and well-being.
Wow.
And that was across all parties.
Well, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's really honed to me how important it is that we try and get the Australian government to ratify both of those documents. Because if we can do it, then we can reverse some of the shit that's gone down here, and not just in the sex trade, but in, all forms of violence against women and girls. Because then we can say, well, you ratified this, you've committed to this.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? We're always behind. I mean, it was a long time before everybody else in the country actually got the gay marriage through. Not that I agree with that. I'm against that myself, but we're behind a lot of stuff in Australia than what's happening in Europe and South American, North American stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't see too much stuff, because legislation even in Parliament, we're losing all the women parliamentarians and the senators. Well, not the senators, the ministers. They're all leaving.
Well, it's because there's no place for women in there. The policies across the board are anti-woman.
I know, and this is the problem. It's not like, it's encouraging other women to take up the gauntlet and get in there. Women don't want to be subjected to the constant bullying and sexism and misogyny.
Yeah.
Can't blame them.
I mean, hell, I don't even know who the hell to vote for anymore, because I look at every single party and I think, on the sexism front, they're going real great being sexists. But, the only thing that would sway me now to vote left is the fact that, on the financial level, and that's it. But their policies are still anti-woman.
Yeah. Well, we've got to be careful. We've got to fill in all the below the top line too, you see, because everything, if you just want to vote one for whatever party, but you've got to be strategic and learn about all the bloody the state and the locals people, because they're not all hitched to one party. They could be, hitched to another party, and in the end, it's basically what comes. We don't actually vote a prime minister in. We only vote basically a local candidate. A local what do you call them? Council.
On the oh, why there?
The local council. That's all we vote in, and then you get the local MP, the local, who goes down to Canberra.
Yeah.
Like your areas that you vote in.
Getting an echo of myself back at myself. It's really weird.
Yeah. I can hear it too.
Right. Yeah, it's stopped now, thank goodness. So, but it was putting me off. I was like, what the hell is that? Yeah, our government's actually become an international laughing stock. People keep saying, well, why is Australia changing their prime minister every year, you know?
Yeah.
Become known for it. I just find that should be enough for us to say, look, we actually need a real upheaval of the parties because clearly none of them are doing a good job and none of them are set up to be able to be.
Well, they're not governing Australia, are they? They're all
No.
jockeying for positions.
And infighting, and it's not just the right. I mean, it's the right at the moment, but you know, the left has been doing this as well historically.
Yeah, of course.
I'm left wing, but I'm not impressed by them.
Well, you know, if it wasn't for Rudd being such an idiot, he was an aggressive male who was also, you know, unable to keep his commitment to the policies that he started off with.
Yeah, and
And
he started off well, you know.
yeah, well, I don't know if you've read Julia Gillard's book after she resigned or after she was voted out and Rudd got back in. You should read what she had to say about what Kevin Rudd was actually doing. He was doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, I think he started out good and then he just kind of flopped. It's like the first, few months he did well.
He couldn't handle the pressure.
No.
He couldn't handle making decisions.
Yeah, and that's something she could handle. I didn't agree with every decision she made, but she could handle making a fucking decision.
Yeah, or basically, yeah, that's why she had to get rid of him because he wasn't doing anything. She was doing everything anyway.
Yeah.
You know, she was VP. She was the what do you call him?
Basically the second.
She was doing his work.
Yeah.
So she said, "We've had enough of this. I might as well bloody run the joint." You know, you're doing nothing. He was just being a little bitch. You know, like complaining and going off on tantrums and yelling at his staff.
Yeah, I heard that he was very aggressive and mostly towards women. I haven't read her book though.
Oh, you should read it. It's really good.
Right. Yeah, that one should be at the library, so I'll look that one up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've got a backlog of reading. I'm terrible with it. I just get home and all I want to do is watch TV.
Yeah, think about nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to go because I'm starving and I'm going to make myself some tea.
Yeah. Well, it's been 2 hours now anyway, so it's good for me to wind this up too. But thanks for
It's been
joining.
great talking to you and thank you for listening.
Yeah. All good.
And I'm
Right.
glad
So
you had a really, really fruitful time over in Portugal. And it sounds like you've had quite an experience getting there and
yeah.
being there and getting back.
Yeah. I'm still recovering actually. But I thought I'd be recovered by now. It's just too much travel in a short period of time, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Takes its toll on the body, especially when someone gives you the lurgy.
Yeah. Yeah, the flu certainly didn't help.
No.
Right. Well, I'll wind it up then. The next Aussie Radfem's live stream, I think will be on a Saturday or a Sunday. So not this week, but the following week on the weekend. And that should be run by somebody else, unless she is busy, in which case I'll do it. But yeah, I will talk to everybody then. Okay,
Wonderful.
see ya.
See ya.